Pull up a chair. I'm only telling this once, and I want you to hear every word. I was taking my bow. Show's almost over. Crowds on their feet. When a woman in the back row screamed my name so hard the whole room went quiet like someone yanked the plug. Notice I said she screamed my name, not help, not fire, my name, like she'd been waiting the entire night for that one moment to say it. The place was the Starlight Room at the Copa del Mar in Vegas, late autumn of 1963. Not a big house, maybe 400 seats, but 400 people who'd paid to spend their Saturday night with me, and I took that seriously. I always did. I walked out there that night feeling good, feeling loose. The band warmed up, the lights hitting the stage just right. There was a white handkerchief sitting on top of the piano when I walked on, folded square, clean. I picked it up, set it on the stool beside me, and didn't think about it twice. The first set went smooth as glass. That's amore. Memories are made of this. A little chat with the crowd between numbers. I had 4 songs left in the set when I spotted her for the first time. Table near the back wall. A woman, maybe 50, dressed simply. Dark dress, hair pinned up, sitting completely still in a way most people in a nightclub don't sit. Not dancing in their seat, not leaning to whisper to a friend, just watching, and not the way fans watch. She was watching me the way someone watches a clock. Write in the comments, where are you listening to this story from, and what time is it right now? What sevens? I filed her away and kept going. 3 more songs, the crowd with me on every note. Listen, here's what I couldn't have known. Why that woman had driven 4 hours to be in that room on that specific night. I'll get to that shortly. 2 songs left. I was at the piano for Return to Me, which was always the quieter number, the one where the room got a little softer and people leaned into each other. I liked that song. Still do. I was sweeping the room the way you do when you're performing, and I noticed the woman in the back hadn't moved, not an inch. Same posture, same hands flat on the table, same eyes locked on me. There was something about her stillness that made me careful. I finished the song. The room gave me a warm hand. I said, "You're too kind, every one of you. Last one of the night." The crowd offered its friendly protest, and I launched into the final number. By then, I'd pushed her out of my mind entirely, the way you do when the music takes over and there's nothing left except the next note. I took my bow. The crowd was on its feet, and that's when she screamed, "Thys, one's ideolessness, same thing," and that's when she screamed, "Thys, Dean?" Just my name. One word, one voice, cutting through 400 people clapping. I stood up straight. The applause dropped off in patches. I shaded my eyes against the lights and looked toward the back of the room. 1/4 dropped off in patches. I shaded my eyes against the lights and looked toward the back of the room. She was standing now, both hands flat on the table, not moving toward me, mouth pressed shut after that one word, like she'd spent everything she had on it. She was holding something, I could see it from the stage, a cream-colored envelope held to her chest, both palms flat. Stop for a second. Picture this room from the stage. The Starlight Room is long and narrow. Stage at one end, bar at the other, 200 feet of tables between them, 400 people holding their breath, waiting to see what Dean Martin does next. I want you to feel how quiet it was. Every pair of eyes in the place pointing the same direction. I had 2 choices. Nod to my stage manager, let him handle it, let the band play me off. That was the professional move. But something about the way she was standing told me this wasn't a fan with a program to sign. There are things you learn after enough years in front of people. You start reading a room like weather. I said to the crowd, "Hang on, pal, give me one moment." I set the microphone on top of the piano, which I had never once done in a paying show in my career, and I walked off the front of the stage and down the center aisle, 400 people watching me walk. Not a sound but my shoes on the floor. Nobody laughed. Nobody reached for a camera. A woman near table 4 put her hand over her mouth. A man in a booth stood up slightly, then thought better of it, and sat back down. They just stepped back and let me through, one table at a time, quiet and respectful, like they understood without being told that something real was happening. I got to her table. Up close, her eyes were red. Not from crying, but from trying not to. The kind of red from holding something in for hours. She was maybe 53, strong face. The kind of woman who'd been through things and was still standing. I said, "Hello, sweetheart. You want to sit down?" She shook her head. She said, "I'm Miriam Falcone. My husband was Sal Falcone." She looked at me like that name was supposed to open a door. I said, "Hello, sweetheart. You want to sit down? One white coin solas, mes the Russian sweetheart, come sweetheart. We want good appreciates the gathering. One white solace and a back. One white solace is not with each order the sweetie. Vond medi, which we coins that solace and this lines this we coins this. It did. Sal Falcone had been my head stagehand for 11 years, best I ever had. The man who could fix a lighting rig with a piece of wire, who kept a soundboard running through a power cut at the Sands in '59, who showed up to every Vegas show I ever did and was always the last man out of the building. He was the kind of man you don't think to thank because everything he does so quietly that the world just keeps working and you never need to ask why. Sal never missed a show, never called in sick, never showed up late, never asked for anything more than what he was owed. I hadn't seen Sal in 2 years. He'd retired the way he did everything, without ceremony. I still didn't understand why Miriam was there, why she was looking at me that way, why that envelope was gripped so hard. Remember, I will in a moment, and so will you. I said, "Miriam, where's Sal? Is he all right?" She pressed her lips together and looked at the envelope. She said, "He passed this morning, 6:45, at home in his chair. And there it was. I stood there with 400 people behind me who couldn't hear us. I put my hand over hers and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Miriam."
She nodded. She said, "He asked me to bring you this. He said, tonight, it has to be tonight. He was particular about that." She held out the envelope. I took it. Something about the weight of it, the way she finally let it go after holding it so hard, made me feel like I'd been handed something I wasn't sure I was ready for.
Wait, why tonight? Sal had been retired 2 years. He had my home number, my manager's number. He could have mailed a letter any day of the week. Why did Miriam need to drive 4 hours to hand this to me in person, mid-bow, in front of a crowd? That question was going to stay with me all night. I walked her backstage. My stage manager, Richie, took one look at my face and cleared the wings without a word. Good sharp instincts, that one. I got Miriam a chair and a glass of water. The band held the room with some quiet instrumental. The crowd settled. The conversation resumed. The glasses clinked. From outside, it looked like a small detour. Just Dean being Dean. I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. Miriam was safe. Sal was being honored. And in a few minutes I'd say goodnight and read the letter the way it deserved, in private, without a room full of people watching my face. It was handled, I was sure of it. After the last guest had gone home and the house lights came up full and Richie was doing his count of the bar receipts, I sat alone at the piano, my name on the front of the envelope in Sal's handwriting, small, careful, old-fashioned. I sat with it a long time before I opened it. Maybe I already knew, somewhere below thinking, that whatever was inside was going to rearrange something. I opened it, and whatever I thought was in there, it wasn't what I found. 3 pages, front and back, written on composition paper with blue lines and a red margin, and on top a photograph. Black and white, me and Sal in front of the Sands marquee, must have been 1958. I'm in my tuxedo, grinning at the camera. Sal's beside me in his work clothes, collar open, not looking at the camera. He's looking at me. The way a man looks at something he's quietly proud of but would never say out loud. I started reading. The first page was personal. The shows, the cities, the late nights after teardown when we'd sit on equipment cases and drink bad coffee out of paper cups and talk about nothing that mattered. The Sands, the Flamingo, that 2-week run in Chicago in the spring of '61 when it rained every day and the crew played cards in the loading dock. Good memories. By the second page, my throat was tightening in a way I hadn't planned on. And then the third page, Sal wrote, "There is something I never told you, Dean. In the fall of 1955, when you were just getting your footing on your own, there was a night at the Blue Diamond Lounge in Reno where the sound equipment failed completely during your opening number. It was my fault. I made a call I shouldn't have, and the rig went down in front of a full house. The owner wanted to hold you responsible. He wanted to put it in the papers that your solo debut fell apart because of your people. I told him plainly that it was my doing and my mistake, and if he wanted to put anything in the papers, he was welcome to put my name in them. He backed down. You never knew. I didn't want you to know because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I did it because you were good, and it was the right thing to do." Everything stopped. The room, the cooling lights, the air itself. I sat there at that piano and didn't move for a long time. All I could hear was the faint sound of Richie stacking chairs somewhere in the back of the house, 300 feet away, the metal legs ringing once, then quiet. 1955, 38 years old, out on my own for the first time after a partnership that had defined me, not sure the world was going to show up for me the way I hoped it would. A story in the papers that year about a failed debut, a man who couldn't hold his show together, could have cost me more than I wanted to think about, more than a booking, more than a review. And this man, this quiet, never asked for anything, always last out of the building man, had stood between me and that story. Not once in 11 years had he breathed a word. Words? I turned the page over, a postscript in smaller writing at the bottom. Dean, I want you to look after Miriam and the kids if you're able. I'm not asking, you know me well enough to know I wouldn't ask, but I know you'd say yes without my explaining why. So I'm not making it a request, I'm leaving it in the hands of the kind of man I've always known you were. Sal, I put the letter down on the piano keys. My hands were not steady. Nobody was there to see it, but I want you to know they weren't steady at all. And then I looked at the piano stool, the white handkerchief, still sitting where I'd left it at the start of the night, folded square, clean. I reached over and turned it in my hands, and in the corner, small, stitched in dark blue thread, the letter F, Falcone. He had been in that building before the first number. One last time, Sal had walked through the Starlight Room, checked whatever needed checking, and made sure things were right the way he always had. He'd left the handkerchief the way he left everything, quietly, without his name on it, without a note, without waiting to be thanked, and then he'd gone home to his chair, and at 6:45 in the morning he was gone for good. I'm not going to tell you I'm a deeply sentimental man. I grew up working class Italian in Steubenville, and I've buried enough people to know that grief is private. But sitting alone in that empty room with a white handkerchief in my hands and 4 pages of the most decent thing a human being had ever written to me, I let myself feel every bit of it, the full weight of 11 years of a man I hadn't really understood until he was somewhere I can't reach. Dar reisen in die Angst, Mut, und Sound, und the sound at skin of them, it far out, it far out, and tell the at far out and tell and far out I called Miriam the next morning. We talked for well over an hour, the kind that goes quiet in all the right places. I won't tell you the details. Those belong to her and the Falcone family. But I will say this. Sal was right. He didn't need to ask. If you've got someone like Sal in your life, someone who shows up quietly, fixes things without announcing it, steps into the line of fire for you and says nothing, you find a way to tell them, tonight, don't wait for a cream-colored envelope at midnight. That's the one thing Sal couldn't give me, the chance to say it to his face. And I've carried that ever since. There are other nights like this one, some worse, some different, and a few I still don't know quite how to tell them. But if you want to hear them, you know where to find me. Just say the word right down below.